Good morning. Hope you're having a great week. It is Wednesday, August 6th, 11:28 a.m. Central Daylight Time, local time here in Oklahoma City. And we're going to do another load board video. Let me clear out some stuff, emails and stuff like that off my tab. Let's flip right over here to it. And oh yeah, let's go to filters, and which blur is it? I think it's this blur effect. Yeah, let's turn that blur effect off real quick. Let's look at this, a few things before we look at the load board. We're going to look at the market page here, and then we're going to look at the total trucks. I haven't looked at this stuff. Like when I make these videos, these are completely improvisation. I don't like look at this stuff beforehand. So I'm looking at it as you're looking at it. So let's look and see what's going on. So what this is that this is a rough overview of the markets, the freight markets across the country on Landstar's load board. And Landstar's load board is primarily spot market freight, so it is kind of representative of the spot market, but there's also a lot of contract freight on Landstar's load board, so this is not going to be identical to the spot market. So we're looking at total load count and average rate per mile. Now, I think the average rate per mile is only taking into consideration loads that are booked, not loads that are listed on the load board, but loads that are actually booked on the load board, and the prices that they're booked at. And these prices are the full rate. We only get approximately 70% of whatever prices you see on Landstar's load board. Because everybody gets different percentages, they don't try to list the percentage that you actually get. They just list the full rate, and you can figure out what you're getting. So don't think you're going to get rich hauling loads at 312 a mile. You're going to get about 70% of that, which is still pretty good. So just skimming this, what am I seeing? I'm seeing like really high average rate per mile, and I'm seeing like really high load counts. Like this looks like the freight market is on fire. I mean, when you're considering average rate per mile, like back when the freight market was at all-time highs, um, when I was leased to USA Truck, they were so excited. They were sending out emails like every week or two talking about how their average rate per mile uh, for the trucks, and this was the full rate. They were saying that their fleet was averaging like I forget what it was. They were bragging about like a $2.15 a mile fleet average, and we were only getting about 70% of it. So that was actually really bad. So whenever you're talking about averages, I run way above average. To see the averages that people are booking rates at this high, I'm just like, wow, this is incredible. Like, are we in another freight boom? And then the total available loads in these markets are really high. For Los Angeles and Chicago to be the exact same load count, that is really weird. Um, but to have four markets over 2,000 loads, that's abnormal. Like it looks like the freight market is doing really well. So let me pause this, and I'm going to pull up the truck count. Let's see what the truck count is. Let's turn the blur effect back on, and we'll pause. All right. The total active trucks. Now, these are just active trucks. This is not every single truck leased to Landstar. And this is truck. This is not person. So a team counts as one truck. So the total active trucks are 7,686. I think that's actually gone up a little bit from last time. I think we were down around 7,300 last time. So maybe Landstar's fleet size has stabilized and stopped shrinking. I mean, there are constantly people leasing on to Landstar, but there's also people constantly leaving. Turnover in the trucking industry is crazy. The only place that I know of that doesn't have like near 100% turnover are LTLs, like UPS, FedEx, XPO Logistics, places like that. Every over the road company that I'm aware of, and I don't care how good their reputation is, Landstar has a really good reputation. Walmart, trucking companies like that. Every over the road trucking company I'm aware of has near 100% turnover rate. Like they're losing about as many people as they're bringing in. They have to have like orientation classes every single week to be able to replace the people that are leaving because so many people are leaving so often. Yeah, over the road trucking has really high turnover. Uh, I don't know of any over the road trucking company that doesn't have issues with high turnover, and it's just because of the lifestyle. But I think Landstar probably has lower turnover than most. But anyway, now let's go to the load board. Let me pause this, and here we are on the search. So there was somebody that replied to my last load board video that said that they were leasing the Landstar in about 6 months. They live in Colorado, and they were curious about what loads were coming in and out of Colorado. So let's go ahead and do our selections here. We're going to do all containers, um, all vans. In specialized, we're going to do needing power only. And that's it. Those are all the trailer types that I select. I know that some van drivers will also choose expedited. I mean, the reason, like, normally I would just choose the van type that I haul, but these agents, they don't list things correctly. So you might, let's go ahead and choose expedite because, the agents, a lot of times, they just don't flag things properly. Max weight, we're going to put it on 45,000 pounds so we don't get any overweight loads. Origin, let's do Denver. Let's do a 250-mile radius around Denver. We're not going to sort by destination. Right now we have 299 loads listed. Let's go ahead and do only contract freight. Another thing, and that brought it down to 16 loads, from 299 down to 16. So there's only almost everything on the load board is reposted spot market crap. Flags, let's do team. No, I'm not a team driver. And that got rid of no loads. I know that there's a lot of team drivers at Landstar. So if you are a team thinking about coming to Landstar, don't let the lack of loads on the load board, the lack of team loads discourage you. Almost all of the dedicated stuff I'm aware of are team things. So if you're a team wanting to come to Landstar, you should be like researching like what team stuff is available. I know that the Google account has team dedicated runs. I think they're all filled up right now, so you can get on the waiting list for that. But pretty much everybody I know of at Landstar that's a team runs dedicated stuff. All right, so only 16 loads. I don't think we need to put in a minimum rate or minimum revenue. Like we have so few loads to work with already. Let's just see what we got. So those are the 16 loads. This right here, Commerce City, Colorado to Salt Lake City, is 8 of the 16 loads. They're all stacked in here. Let's see what agency has this load. This is the CGI agency, which has the Saya account. They're not the only ones that have the Saya account, and that's not the only account that they have. Let me pause this and see if there's a Saya terminal in Commerce City. So Commerce City and Henderson are right next to each other. Like it's the same little area, same neighborhood. And the Saya terminal is in Henderson, Colorado, not Commerce City. So this could just be a mislisting of the zip code. So yeah, this is looking like it is most likely Saya, but it may not be. It could be FedEx or somebody else. But they have a whole bunch of loads coming out of basically Denver. Commerce City and Henderson is the northeast side of Denver. They got a whole bunch of loads going to Salt Lake. Oh my goodness, some of these loads are ridiculously cheap. $1.63 a mile. Remember, all the prices that you see on here, that's the full rate. That's what the customer's paying. We get 65% of the line haul plus 100% of the fuel surcharge, which comes out to somewhere around 70% of whatever you're seeing on here. So $1.63 a mile, what I would actually make hauling that load, 1.63 times zero point 0.7, $1.14 a mile. That is ridiculously cheap. Here's Cheyenne, Wyoming to Salt Lake from the VAM agency, VAM, which they have. What I know VAM by is FedEx. Like every load I've ever hauled with for VAM was a FedEx load, but I've seen them list Saya loads as well. So they're another place that has Saya contracts. So tons of loads going to Salt Lake, and I see these loads for CGI all the time. And if you look at the pickup and delivery dates, like Saya has tons of these loads. So this one picks up August 20th, August 21st, August 28th, 27th, September 3rd, September 4th. Like they have these loads going like every week. So you could probably get in a situation where you're running a whole bunch of Saya loads if you figure out what their lanes are, where they're going and stuff like that. Because I know that they post loads coming out of Oklahoma City all the time going to Denver. All right, just a second. Load board's screwing up. This is the reason I prefer to use saved searches because the load board screws up all the time and I have to reload the page. And I hate having to go in here and set everything back up again. So what saved searches am I going to use? Let's see what this one is. Basic. This is change that. 19 available loads. So this is basically an Oklahoma City search. Dallas to Salt Lake City, Grand Prairie, Texas to Salt Lake. I would bet money that this is CGI because Grand Prairie has a Saya terminal. And there's 4 of these loads posted. No, this is the VAM agency, but I still bet that this is the Saya terminal because the VAM agency also has a contract with Saya. This is messing up the load board. Drop and hook on both ends, possible hazmat. Lane weight can range from 2,000 to 42,000 pounds, but is almost always 32,000 or below. That's copy pasta. That's what they put on all their LTL loads. All their LTL contracts are max weight 42,000. So yeah, I'd be willing to bet that that is another Saya load. So what is this telling me? What is this telling me? I am seeing a ton of LTL loads. I'm seeing large numbers of loads across several markets. I'm seeing very high average booked load rates. This tells me the freight market is doing quite well. Now, brokers will lower rates really, really quick. Or not, yes, they'll lower rates really quick because that's in their advantage. They want to move loads as cheap as possible. The cheaper they move loads, the more money they make. Now, when the freight market starts doing well, you have resistance from customers and brokers on raising rates. They're the ones who set the prices, and they want the prices to be as low as possible. So, whenever the freight market starts doing really well, the rates come up slower than they go down. So, when the freight market starts doing poorly, the rates can plummet very fast. But when the freight market starts doing well, the rates come up really slow. They come up because they're forced to come up. They come up out of desperation. They can't move the loads at those prices. So I'm not seeing any crazy rates on here. You know, like $6, $7 a mile loads. But I'm gonna skim through the load board. I'm not gonna talk about individual loads. I'm gonna ramble about other stuff, and I'll just let you look at the loads if you want. There's a lot of solid loads on here. Nothing is jumping out at me as like being amazing, but there's a lot of solid loads on here. And I wish they would change the default sort. This load board sorts by the agent code alphabetically. It's just like, who is the idiot behind this load board? Who's the one like designing this stuff? This is so janky. And like just the way it's set up, it just doesn't make any sense at all. All right, is this now sorting by spinning wheel? It's having issues loading the full results. This thing is so janky. Yeah, there's nothing on here that's looking amazing. So let's I've already skimmed through all these, so let's go to another market. It's having issues loading anyway, so I need to pull up something different. Crap. All right, I'm just gonna do a brand new search because I don't want to mess with my saved search. Actually, you know what? We will. We will. We'll just change the city. What do we want to look at? Let's look at Los Angeles. So I always search Fontana when I'm looking at Los Angeles. 250-mile radius is pretty big for Fontana. That might even pick up Vegas. 51 loads. So I'll scroll through those while I'm explaining this. The way LTL companies work, now over the road companies, they don't care about how many people they hire. They don't care about over hiring people because over the road companies don't pay benefits. Like they don't really care about turnover. They can get rid of people very easily with over the road companies. They can make people quit. It's a really, really messed up industry. And, trucking companies are, they don't have to follow a lot of labor laws. They are exempted from a lot of labor laws. So over the road companies don't have to worry about overhiring. If they overhire, their turnover is so high that they can just slow down, not even stop hiring, but just slow down hiring, and their fleet size will plummet. because of how high their turnover is. LTL companies don't have that problem with turnover. So LTL companies do not overhire. Whenever the freight market is doing really well, how do LTL companies deal with that? And for people who don't know what I mean by OTR and LTL and all that stuff, a few different terms. OTR, over the road. These are companies that run all over the United States or regionally, but they run big areas. They don't run in one specific little spot. They don't run a specific lane. A lane is going from one place to another place, like Oklahoma City to Dallas. That is a lane. A region would be like running all over Oklahoma or all over Oklahoma, Texas, or all over the eastern United States or all over the western United States. LTL is less than a load. So, and then you have TL for truckload or trailer load. Over the road drivers typically move trailer loads, truckloads. So one customer pays for the entire trailer. You don't have mixed freight in there. Whereas LTL, that's what they do, is mixed freight. Each customer will be one pallet or two pallets. A customer might have 5 pallets, another customer has 1 pallet. There might be like 20 different customers in a single trailer. So LTL companies typically do what's known as line haul to move freight from place to place. So there will be a line haul run going from like Oklahoma City to Denver. And most LTL drivers are home daily. So they'll do a meetup. There'll be a Denver driver and an Oklahoma City driver, and they'll both leave and they'll meet up somewhere halfway in between, swap trailers, and then go back to their terminals because you can't drive round trip in a single day in a single drive shift between Oklahoma City and Denver. Now, cities that are close enough, like Dallas, Oklahoma City and Dallas, you could be an LTL driver doing line haul in Oklahoma City, and your line haul run could be to go down to the Dallas terminal. You'd swap trailers, then come back to the Oklahoma City terminal. But anyway, that's, the basic LTL line haul over the road explanation. So LTL companies like XPO Logistics, FedEx, UPS, they don't overhire. The way that they deal with higher than expected, I'm going to scroll down so you can look at loads. The way that they deal with increases in freight volume is that they use other companies to move that freight. They don't hire more drivers. So the first sign that you see that the freight market is doing really well is that LTL companies are contracting out a lot of loads. And I'm seeing that right now. The second sign that you see that the freight market is absolutely on fire is when LTL companies are offering dedicated runs. That means if they're doing dedicated runs at LTL companies, that means that the amount of freight that they're moving is so ridiculously high that they need guaranteed people hauling their excess freight every week. And then on top of that, they're still having to move stuff through contracts. So they're basically hiring, 5 to 10, extra drivers as dedicated over the road drivers to do line haul runs. And then they're still moving loads through contract on top of that. That's what happened when the freight market was at all-time highs, is that Saia on Landstar's load board had dedicated runs in basically every major city across the United States. Like Oklahoma City, they had dedicated runs. I called them and talked with them about it, and the rates that they were paying were abysmal. Like, it was atrociously low. Like, it was so ridiculously bad. Like, they were paying something like 230 or 240 a mile on the full rate. Like I was going to be making like $1.70 a mile, and they could send me anywhere they wanted. There were no restrictions on where they could send me. So it wasn't like a dedicated line haul run where I would just come in and run Oklahoma City to Dallas every day. It wasn't like that. It was just I was signing up for the Oklahoma City terminal and they could have me go anywhere. They could send me to New York City. And the rates were really, really high. It was easy to run at $3 a mile to the truck back then. And they're offering me $1.70 a mile to the truck to do this dedicated run. I was like, no, 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 no. Even now, I don't think I would take that dedicated run. Even with the freight market as bad as it has been, I wouldn't do that. Like, you're just like, it's below operating cost of most trucks. There are a ton of these harbor freight loads. The FLS agency out of Moreno Valley has the harbor freight contract. All right, so what we need to do is sort by total revenue. And the way I usually judge the LA market is by how many loads over $8,000 it has. And as you can see, there's not a single load over $8,000. That tells me that it's, the LA market's horrible. When the best I've ever seen the LA market was like, I think 40 plus $8,000 loads. We're also just looking at contract freight. Let's look at spot market freight as well. And see if we have a whole bunch of $8,000 loads. No, not really. All right, let's get rid of this crap. I don't like looking at spot market loads because I very rarely haul spot market loads. And I talk about this every time I do load board videos, but the spot market loads that you see are just made up fantasy land make believe stuff. I don't care what prices you see on here. You call and try to book that, and they're going to tell you, oh, that load's already booked, or um, the broker has it. They still have it, but they want to move it like 50 cents a mile cheaper than I have it listed. And even then, you could book the load, and then like a couple hours later, they could say, "Oh, the load canceled," because somebody else agreed to haul it at a cheaper price. Like I cannot stand hauling spot market loads. But it looks like the LA market is better. Like there's actually a load on here. Well, there was. What happened to it? It's already booked. There was a load on here going to Laredo, Texas that had 2 extra stops on it. Wait a second. Am I going to have to sort again? Did it change the sorting method again? Yeah, there it is. I hate the way that this thing sorts by the agency code. Like, what kind of person like sets that up? Like, why? So, yeah, for the last couple of years that the freight market's been bad, it's been like really bad in the LA area. You could find decent loads running up and down I-5, but to find a load to get you back over to the eastern half of the country, you were going to be running at a loss. Like they were really really cheap, like $1.50 a mile to the truck loads. Like they were really bad. But here we have a load that's going from Riverside, California to Laredo, Texas. It has 2 extra stops on it. But it's paying 383 a mile on the full rate. That's not bad to get you back over to the eastern half of the country. Laredo's not a bad place to be. And here's a load to get you to Nashville, Tennessee. Used to these coast to coast runs, these loads going from LA, not even coast to coast, but basically Dallas and east. Like these loads would pay like 7,000 plus. Now these loads are paying like 5,500 bucks, which that's profitable, but it's not awesome. But yeah, things are looking better. And this is the time of year when the freight market usually starts doing really well. You have back to school, um, you have businesses that are starting to get prepared for the holiday season. Believe it or not, businesses are going to start shipping in, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, all that stuff. They're going to start shipping it in now. They don't like getting things in last second. There'll be people that, businesses will have Halloween candy in stock like a month before Halloween. So the LA market is not premium, but it's not bad. All right, let's look at another place. Let's look at Atlanta. I was really surprised at how bad the Atlanta market was last time we looked at it. Four loads. Four loads. We're not changing the search parameters, and there's only four loads. Like, why is the Atlanta market so bad? There's tons of loads coming out of the LA market, or the Atlanta market, but they pay nothing. I think what it is that a lot of people have realized that it is more efficient to deadhead up from Florida to Atlanta and pick up loads there. I think that's what's driving the price of the Atlanta market down is people learned how to math. Whereas before we had a lot of morons that were just taking, 80 cent a mile loads out of Florida. They take this high paying load into Florida and think that they're getting rich. And then, there's a lot of drivers that have the mindset that you shouldn't deadhead more than like 50 miles for a load. So they'll take whatever they can get within like 50, 100, 150 miles. And they will take really cheap loads. And I think that we have people that like know how to do math in the a lot of people in the industry, and they figured out that it's a lot better to just deadhead 700 miles from Miami to Atlanta and pick up a good paying load out of Atlanta rather than haul something for 50 cents a mile out of Miami. Uh, so the Atlanta rates have not been very good for a long time. And I think that's because, people have learned not to haul crap out of Florida. Just drive up to Atlanta. But yeah, Atlanta is not a good market. All right, now let's go take a peek at Chicago. 230, no, 24 loads. I thought it was 237. No, it's 24. 24 loads. All right, let's sort these by total revenue. A lot of these destinations are really, really bad destinations. Washington, Florida, Colorado, Wyoming. These are places you do not want to be looking for a load. I am seeing some round trip loads. Let's take a look at the 2 round trip loads that I saw. Let's start with this one down here. Burr Ridge, Illinois. This is CGI that has a SI account. Are we seeing dedicated runs on here again? That's a sign. No comments. So it's Burr Ridge, Illinois to Omaha, Nebraska, back to Burr Ridge, Illinois. So you're basically doing one of their line haul runs. It's 900 miles. And it's same day. Well, it's one day. You have exactly 24 hours to do 900 miles. A solo driver can't do that. And they have it listed as a solo run. CGI and Saya do this all the time. They list team runs as solo runs. $900 miles. And you know the mileage is more than 900. This is short mileage. 900 miles in 24 hours. Let's just think about that. So you have a 12-hour drive shift, and you can do maybe 650 miles in that 12-hour drive shift. And then you have a 10-hour break, so that's 22 hours. You have 2 more hours that you can do maybe 130 miles. Well, more like 120 miles. So 650 plus 120, that's 770, right? 770 miles is about the most a solo driver can do in a 24-hour period. And this is 900 miles in a 24-hour period. You pick it up at 3 p.m. and you deliver it the following day at 4 p.m. It's almost exactly 24 hours. It's 25 hours. So let's say another hour, 60 more miles. So that's 830 miles. You're still an hour or 2 short of drive time of being able to deliver this. But Saya lists these loads like this all the time. Impossible loads. I've hauled a couple of them, and the only reason I was able to deliver them on time was because the load was ready like a day early. Like I've hauled a few loads for them going from Dallas to Portland, and the load was ready like a day early, and not a full day early, like 12 hours early. It was supposed to be ready at like 4 a.m. and I got there at like 6 p.m. and the load was ready when I got there because I was planning on taking like a 10-hour break so that I could have all my driving available whenever the load was ready. And they told me it was ready whenever I got there, and I was just like, all right, I'm going to take off now. But yeah. And you talk with a CGI agency about these ridiculous, schedules. You're like, you can't do this as a solo driver. This is a team load. And they're like, we have solo drivers do it all. Do you know how frustrating that is in the trucking industry? Like every time somebody asks you to do something ridiculous, their response is, truck drivers do this all the time. Like that's their, and when you're talking with a truck driver and the truck driver says something that's absolutely ridiculous, their defense is, well, I've been doing this for 20 years. I can't stand talking to people that use justification for their stupid ideas as they've been doing it a long time. Just because you've been doing something a long time doesn't mean you know what you're doing. And just because somebody, and then on the broker side, the agent side, just because somebody else did it in the past doesn't mean like it's possible for somebody else to do it. Maybe that other person that did it in the past was driving 90 miles an hour. Maybe it was some cokehead, meth head super trucker. Not all of us are meth head super truckers. All right, so those are all the loads. You can skim through them if you want to. And let's look at one more market. Where are we at? 40 minutes? Yeah, I don't want this thing to get too long. All right, what market? Is it even worth looking at Seattle, Portland? We'll just look at Portland. This doesn't count as the one market. We're just going to look at Portland real quick. It's probably not going to have any results. One load. One load. Let's look at it real quick. At one of these huge 26 extra stop loads, so 27 total deliveries, Staten, Oregon to Colorado Springs, Colorado. 337 a mile on the full rate. 7,500 bucks on the full rate. I would only haul one of those loads out of desperation. I think those might be the cabinet loads, but you have the ROR agency and the SUL agency that both list huge multi-stop loads. One of them is the cabinet loads, and the other one I can't remember, and I get the two confused all the time. I've never hauled one of these massive multi-stop loads. So what other market are we going to look at? So we've looked at Oklahoma City, Dallas. We've looked at LA, Atlanta, Chicago, Portland, Seattle. That pretty much covers a lot of the country. I hardly ever look at anything up in the Northeast. And I'm not going to start now. I would have to redo all of my search parameters. Like on this saved search, I have the Northeast excluded. So there are loads that are going into the Northeast that you're not seeing in these search results. And normally when I'm doing load board videos, I don't have my exclusions listed. But today, well, it's not just today, it's all the time. This load board is so janky that I just don't feel like filling out this form constantly whenever it keeps screwing up and losing my search parameters. All right, what else we got? Let's do one more market. Man, we pretty much covered everything. I guess we could do Salt Lake. Yeah, Salt Lake, Boise, Twin Falls, Jerome area. One load. Salt Lake City to San Jose, California. And it's that SUL agency. You have the ROR and the SUL agency. Those are the two that post a whole bunch of multi-stop loads. 7 extra stops. Salt Lake City to San Jose. All right, now let's go back to looking at. Let's look at Laredo. This is we'll stop at Laredo. Hopefully Laredo has a lot of loads. 42. Yeah, that's a pretty good number. So we'll scroll through these while I tell you what's going on with me. So what is going on with me is I had a DOT inspection done last Thursday, almost a week. Today's Wednesday, right? Tomorrow will be a week since I got my DOT inspection done. And the last time I got a DOT inspection done, it took Landstar a week to update their records. So I've been waiting for them to update their records. I'm still out of service right now. They still haven't processed my DOT inspection. They get a little pissed off if you call them within like 3 business days. They tell you that it takes 2 to 3 business days for them to process your reports, like your maintenance reports and your inspection reports. And they get kind of pissed off if you call in that 2 to 3 business day window. So Friday, Monday, Tuesday. That is the 3 business days. So today was okay, you've had your 3 business days, your 3 full business days. So today I called to figure out what was going on. And Landstar told me that Conlin Tire did not email them the DOT inspection. So I had to call Conlin Tire and get them to email over the DOT inspection. And they weren't sure if they sent it the first time. They said, "Oh, I remember getting that email, but I thought I sent it. I guess I didn't send it." And they apologized. They were like, "Oh, we're usually really good about sending these like as soon as possible." Um, so Conlin Tire sent uh, the thing over. Just like I talked with Conlin Tire right before I started the video, and they said that they would email it over within 30 minutes. So they should have sent it over any minute now. Um, I was waiting until the DOT inspection got uh, uh, updated before I sent in my maintenance report, but I went ahead and sent in my maintenance report today. So I'm hoping that all of that gets processed. I was hoping it'd be done by now, but I'm hoping now that it gets processed by the end of the week. And then I can book a load because I'm out of service right now. I'm past 120 days on my DOT inspection. So I'm just waiting for it to all get processed. But one thing that Landstar did tell me is that I can also submit the DOT inspection. Now, my DOT inspection's in the truck, which is 25 miles away. So 50 miles round trip. And a lot of that is city, like it's not all interstate driving. So you're talking about like an hour and a half of drive time if traffic's not bad for me to go over there and get the DOT inspection and come back. So I hope I don't have to go do that. Conlin said that they were going to email a copy of it. But now that I know that for the future, next time I get my DOT inspection done at Conlin Tire, I'm just going to, take the DOT inspection home with me, scan it into the computer, and email it to Landstar. That way I don't have to worry about whether or not Conlin sent it in. But that's what's going on with me. Let's scroll through these loads. Actually, let's sort the loads by price like they should be in the first place. You know what? Let's use this user feedback button up here. Let me pause this, and I'm going to send an email to them telling them to change the default sort. All right, so here is the email I'm sending them, and I've worded it a few different ways, so hopefully they can figure out what in the hell I'm talking about. So capacity portal at Landstar feedback. Default sort method is alphabetically by agency code in search results. Please change this to revenue descending. Revenue descending is the normal default sort method for all load boards. Highest revenue loads at top, going down to lowest revenue loads at bottom. And then, bam. We sent it. Wait a second. I saw an email and it was like, your DocuSign maintenance report has been completed. I'm like, oh, they processed my maintenance report. No, it was just an automatic email that I submitted my maintenance report through DocuSign. What happened? Oh my goodness. Landstar's janky load board. So whenever I clicked on the link to provide feedback, instead of opening up in a new tab, it just loaded it in that tab. So I lost the search results. Let's just go ahead and wrap up the video. I'm tired of Landstar's load board jankiness. I'm not going to load up a new load board and put in all the filters and everything for it. This load board, this beta load board, has been around, I think, since I started with Landstar. I think this beta load board became available No, they told me that a new load board was going to become available when I first went through orientation in like May or June of 2021, and it was like 6 months to a year later. So it was sometime in 2022 or late 2021 when this load board became available. And they've been like working on the getting the bugs out of the load board for like, what is that, 3 years? That is insane that it's taking them this long to figure out basic stuff on this load board. Like, whoever they have working on this load board doesn't know what they're doing. Like, they have some really low end IT people working on this load board. I could do a better job on the load board. But yeah. Anyway, that's what's going on with me. I'm waiting for them to get me out of back in service so that I can find a load. And it looks like I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm still undecided. I really like running up to the Pacific Northwest to Seattle, Portland because of the big paying loads coming out of Dallas headed up there. But what I should probably do is run up and down the I-29-35 corridor. Just try to head up to take loads up to like Williston. You can get really high paying loads typically going up to like Williston, North Dakota. It's a huge petroleum industry area. And then deadhead over to Minneapolis and then get a decent paying load back south. That's what I might try to do is like Williston, go down into Texas. I might have to go all the way down to like San Antonio or something, Midland, Odessa, and go up to Williston, and then go over to Minneapolis. There'll be a lot of deadheading, but I could just basically run between Texas and North Dakota, Minnesota, back and forth, and that should be pretty decent money. And I might get lucky and find loads coming out of Williston or Minot coming back down to Texas. And right about now is when the petroleum industry is supposedly going to start kicking off, and they're going to start hiring a lot of people and moving a lot of stuff around. Um, Petroleum industry jobs are awesome, but they're fleeting. I know of two people that I used to work with uh, that got petroleum industry jobs. One of them, so where I was working at in the department, we worked in different departments, um, and I made a little bit more money than them, but not a lot. I think it was, but anyway, I think they were making around $50,000 a year at the IT company that I was working at, and one of them got on with Halliburton, and I think he was making around $80,000 a year starting pay. And they told him that he had to go through a bunch of certifications, and his top end pay was like 250, $300,000 a year, or maybe 400,000. I can't remember. It was like somewhere between 200 and $400,000 a year. And they told him that he could get there within like 2 to 3 years if he, studied the material and took all the tests and that he had to do. Um, and it was just like almost like an automatic progression path for him. So his starting pay was like $80,000 a year. And I don't think he ever made it past $80,000 a year, um, because he was lazy. But what he did was he would go out to a drill site that they were. I don't know anything about the oil and natural gas industry, the petroleum industry. But I think it was whenever they were drilling new wells, he would go out there, and it would be him and one other guy that would go out there for like a month at a time. And this would be out in the middle of nowhere. And he got a company truck, And what was weird with the company truck was I think that the company, he was able to go out and pick out his own truck, and the company would make the truck payments, and he got to keep the truck after it got paid off. Like, the perks of that job were insane. But this is secondhand information, and people tend to exaggerate, and some people flat out lie to make themselves look better. So I'm not sure how much of it was true. But anyway, he would go out to these sites out in the middle of nowhere, and it was 12 hours on, 12 hours off. It was just him and one other person in a trailer. And what they did was every like 20 feet, they had to email a whole bunch of reports to a distro list. So there was like a list of like, I don't know, 10, 20 different people, different email addresses that they would have to send a whole bunch of reports to. Like every 20 feet, he would have to send these reports. And he said some days they wouldn't do 20 feet in a single day. Like you might send one report for the whole 12-hour shift because they only did 20 feet the whole shift. And then other days they're just slamming through it and you're sending reports like every 20 minutes. You're just constantly sending reports. But basically, it's my understanding he didn't have to put the reports together or anything. I don't know why they were even paying somebody to do his job, because he was basically just taking reports that were auto generated and copying them into an email and sending them out to a distribution list. That's something that could easily be automated. Like you did not need to pay somebody $80,000 a year to do that. Like that's the kind of ridiculous waste that you have in the petroleum industry. Um, and he could have made up to like $400,000 a year, $300,000 or $400,000 a year, pretty much doing that job. Um, just doing that job right there, just sending reports every 20 feet or whatever the hell he did. Well, that job did not last very long. I think he did that for about 6 months, and then that's when OPEC started driving the fuel prices down by overproducing because they got pissed off with the all the fracking up in Canada and North Dakota. Um, they just got mad about the U.S. producing so much petroleum, and they knew that U.S. companies needed to make a lot more money to be profitable than them. They could drive the price per barrel down to nothing and still be profitable. So they intentionally drove the price per barrel down really low by overproducing, and it pushed it to a point where it just put a whole bunch of U.S. oil companies out of business. And that's when he got shut down, and he came back and got his job back at the IT place that I worked at. But I think he only did that job for like 6 months. The other guy that I worked with, I'm not sure what company he worked for, but he had an office job. And I think he was making about $70,000 a year. So he went from like $50,000 to $70,000 a year when he went to the oil industry. And what his job was he monitored the oil tanks at these drilling sites. He could remotely monitor like what their level was, and whenever they would get close to full, he would like send in a request to have a like a truck go out there and like pick up the oil out of the oil container barrel thing out there. So basically, he would send a request, hey, this location is getting full. We need a truck to go out there and empty it. That was his job. And he worked with a team of people in an office building here in Oklahoma City. And one of the things that he was always talking to me about was their schedule. He started out on like a normal 8 to 5 schedule, like a 40-hour a week. And then there were some complaints or something about the oil field people did not like constantly working with different people. And there was not, they weren't passing information properly from one shift to the other. And the oil field people said, we want people that work the same damn shifts as us so that I'm not having to talk with three different people on an issue. Um, so they switched them over to where they were working the same schedule as like an oil rig person, which was like 3 weeks of like 12 hours a day, 7 days a week with like 2 weeks off or something like that. So they all went to like an oil field schedule in that office building so that they would be working the same hours as the oil field people that they were working with. But yeah, that's one of the things that I noticed about the people I know of that got oil field jobs is like these are really high paying jobs for what they're asking these people to do. Like you could train somebody to do one of these jobs in about 5 minutes and you could automate these jobs. Like I'm not understanding why the oil field pays, you know, 80, $100,000 for somebody to basically press a button every 30 minutes. Like that's really like what these jobs are. That's the level of skill it takes. But hey, if they're going to pay that kind of money, if they're going to share the wealth, then let them share the wealth. You know, get out there and if you can get a piece of that pie, if you can get one of these easy jobs. What's crazy is these jobs are incredibly easy, but you go and look at the requirements to get these jobs and they're actually kind of high. Like you don't need the level of experience and knowledge and skill that they require to apply for these jobs, but they still require it. It's weird. It's really weird. But yeah, you know, supposedly the oil field's about to kick off. I've heard that from several different people. Um, who are some of the people I've heard it from? Two of the places that I've heard it from when I was at TA Petro, which is now owned by, I think, British Petroleum. The people at the TA Petro here in Oklahoma City told me that they've heard through the company, through British Petroleum, that the oil field, the oil industry was going to kick off in 60 to 90 days. And I heard the exact same time frame from Glenn at the place at Big Rig Products, the place where I pay to park my truck. Glenn, who just shut down a business that made pipes for the oil field. He had an oil field pipe company, and he still does a whole bunch of stuff with the oil field stuff. Like he runs a trucking company and all kinds of things. Um, he told me the exact same thing, like the exact same week, 60 to 90 days. And this was back about 90 days ago. 90 to 120 days. This was back around the time I got my last DOT inspection done, which was about 120 days ago. And I had two people within a week tell me 60 to 90 days, the oil fields are going to be kicking off. So be on the lookout for that. There might be a lot of oil field jobs popping back up, but they're fleeting. They usually pay really well. They're really awesome jobs. Some of them are extremely hard work. Some of them are just sitting in a trailer pressing a button every 30 minutes. But there's just like almost no job stability in the oil industry. Like if the oil prices go down or if that like oil field dries up, you're gone like instantly. So yeah, you better have a backup plan if you're going to do oil field work. Like my uncle was a foreman on oil rigs in Libya throughout the 80s, and they were making like he was making I think $80,000 a year back in the 1980s. That was really good money, and they shut down the oil fields in Libya at some point in the late 80s or early 90s. And They went bankrupt. My aunt and uncle went bankrupt because their lifestyle was, the expectation that they were going to continue making that kind of money, and they just shut down those oil fields. And yeah, he couldn't find another oil field job. He became a truck driver, making like 20 cents a mile. He worked for CFI out of Joplin, Missouri. What are they? Corrugated Freight something? I can't remember. CFI out of Joplin. That's who he went to work for after the oil fields collapsed. But I'm not sure if that was his first job, but that's where I remember him driving for. But anyway, I'm starting to ramble. So have a good one. And whenever I get back in service, which let me check Landstar's page real quick. Maybe they processed it. Ooh, they processed something. Let me see what it says here. Maintenance report submit. So they have processed my DOT inspection. Now I'm just waiting on them to process my maintenance report. And I just submitted that like 30 minutes ago. So I should be good to go tomorrow. I should be out of service tomorrow, or back in service tomorrow. So we're good to go. Yeah, I should be able to book a load tomorrow, Friday at the latest. It usually takes them like 24 hours to process those maintenance reports. So we're almost good to go. The DOT inspection has been processed. And once I'm able to book a load, I will start looking for a load, and I'll probably record me trying to find a load for myself. But anyway, have a good one, and we'll talk later whenever I'm looking for a load, whenever I can look for a load. Anyway, bye.